Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Soulganize Your Life, the podcast with Win Lacey, where we discern the difference between how we organize our lives through the psychological distortions of what we call the ego and the soul's perspective, which is really just divine inspiration. The soul has nothing but love for us, but the ego is going to tell you that you are never enough. The soul will be whispering to you faintly out of love, and the ego will be telling you to control life, to come down hard on other people, to judge them, to distrust them, to gain more possessions, to make more achievements, to make yourself worthwhile. So there's a real way to start distinguishing between what is your higher self, your soul, whatever you want to call it, and your ego. And once we can make those pretty good discernments, we are able to start flushing out the parts that are causing us a lot of suffering, because the ego is not going to go away, but we can definitely lessen the amount of suffering that we experience. And we can actually spend our daily lives from this soul perspective. And it's just such a peaceful, loving place to be. And our guest today is Megan Walls, and she's here to help us do that from her own particular perspective. I met Megan through the Institute for Professional Excellence in Coaching, which you may have heard me say with other guests. It was life-changing. And I'm sure you feel, Megan, like if I never coached a person afterwards, it did change my own life. And Megan went on to do something different. I became a therapist, and Megan kept moving forward as a career coach, as an executive coach. She works with all kinds of people in all phases of their careers, whether they're just starting out, whether they are transitioning into a totally different career, whether they are leading full teams from a very high level place in a business. And, she's done it all. And she had a whole life before she became a coach as a successful business person. And so I really believe Megan has a lot to offer us today, and talk a little bit more about her perspective that she's created around her ego and her soul. So Megan, thanks for being here.
Oh, Win, it's just a pleasure to be here, and thanks for having me. Yes.
Well, thanks for being here. Really, I appreciate all different kind of perspectives. And I do believe that the soul wants us to have careers and do things in the physical and make money. And, that's the life that we have chosen here on this planet. So we might as well embrace it. And, that's one of the ways in which you do so. I think it can be very spiritual to work and to be in a profitable business. So, So Megan, do you want to add anything about your introduction or your passions?
That was a lovely introduction. I think the only thing I would add is that, after having a 20-year corporate job, I really found my passion, and that is in coaching, and to help people see and realize their inherent talents and abilities, and then help them believe in them, right? Because a lot of times we minimize these inherent talents and abilities and strengths, and then leverage them to find that role career that aligns with them and their soul, so that they thrive, whether it be their positions in their career or organizations.
Yeah. Because here, we can't just all quit, right? I mean, we got to keep doing whatever work we're called to do. And we want to do it in a way that doesn't cause us suffering. And I'm guessing that there was a time in your life when your work was causing you suffering, and you maybe have come to an understanding of like, oh, this isn't the real me. This is something that I call, and that psychology calls, the ego. How can you take us back to maybe some of those times where you started having those awareness moments?
I would love to. And so, yes, I think at a young age, I just really let that ego run my life. And part of it was family of origin, society. And what that really looked like for me was, to be successful was about making as much money as you could, moving up the corporate ladder, really just, amassing all these material things to be successful. And when I'll never forget my aha moment, the day that it just all really changed was, I spent 20 years selling municipal bonds in the bond industry. And I had always waited for my career day, where I'd gross in one day what I normally would gross in 2 or 3 months, because, I was waiting for that because that to me was true success. And the day that I had that, the day I had my career day where I grossed in one day what I normally gross in 3 months, I remember walking to the train at the end of the day thinking, wow, Megan, you've just had that career day you've been waiting for. And in that same breath, I remember thinking, why do I feel so unhappy,
Wow.
unfulfilled? And wow, is this all life's about? Just selling bonds and making money?
Wow.
And that's when it really hit me hard. And I thought, wow, this is wrong. This is messed up. This is not success. This is not how I want to continue to define my success. My success is really about about relationships I have with myself, I have with God, with my friends and family. And sure enough, I'd really disconnected from all my relationships, especially me. And it was at that point where I said, okay, got to make a change. And I scaled back my hours for 2 years to really kind of, figure this out. And after 2 years, I just resigned. I quit because I was exhausted, burnout, and knew I was out of alignment. Right.
Yeah.
What I know now that I didn't know then was I was experiencing a personal imbalance. I let work
Right.
suck everything out of me. And it was
So,
that moment that really shifted everything. And I thought, okay, I got to make a change here. Don't know how.
so how did you said, I've never heard that term career day. So where were you taught to have a career day where you said, like, I made more money
Great
in
question.
one day?
I think, sitting around a trading desk with a bunch of, I was like one of the few women on the trading desk, a bunch of them were guys. These guys were just killing it day in and day out. And of course, they'd been in the business a lot longer than me. And so I remember thinking, well, I can't wait to have the career day like, Jim just had today, or, Steve had yesterday. I can't wait. So, again, it's ingrained in that environment.
Yeah. So as an ego learning from other egos about what
Oh,
is going to make me feel amazing. Like, I'm going to feel amazing when this happens.
you hit the nail on the head. Ego learning from other ego. Wow.
Yeah.
And so it was at that moment where I think my soul just kind of, I heard my soul say, wow, this isn't success for you.
Wow.
This is not something sustainable for you. It's not healthy or it's not feeding you. Right.
Yeah. What was that the first time you ever heard your soul talk to you?
To be honest, no. And I think based on my upbringing, ego really taught me to let everyone else dictate my life. Like everyone else knew better, right? Friends, mothers, father, I really didn't trust my gut, my intuition, my soul. So I really did. And so the other really poignant time I remember really, really clearly remember hearing my soul speak to me was it was the day before a very serious surgery. I had a benign brain tumor when I was 29. And I was laying, I went in the day before for a bunch of tests. And I remember laying on a gurney out in the hallway, waiting to go into my next test. And there was no one in the hallway. I mean, it was empty. And I remember laying there feeling so afraid, so lonely, and just thinking, oh my gosh, this is horrible. Like, and all of a sudden I heard this voice inside of me say, Megan, you're not alone. We've,
Wow.
with you. I've always been with you. And so know that you're not going through this by yourself. And it kind of chokes me up now. And I remember looking around the hallway, looking around thinking, wait, did I hear that? is someone speaking to me, or is this, really my God voice talking? And sure enough, no one was in the hallway. I was by myself, and I thought, and, to this day I get goosebumps, and really knew that I knew I was going to be okay.
I
And
am
so,
actually getting goosebumps while you're telling this story. All around my midsection. It's
well, I
crazy.
just got all over. And
Yeah.
the other crazy thing is I had a 9-month-old at home, and
Oh my God.
scared to death, just scared to death.
I
So,
bet.
it's all those, I think sometimes, you need some major, like the soul was pushing me off the cliff to listen, I guess. I don't know. Like, come on, Megan, we want to get your attention.
So not to skip over that, right? I mean, that is just, I
Yeah.
can't even imagine the trauma of that time in your life, but it's so cool to know that you were down at like this, what the ego does, which is separate you and make you feel alone, right? And tells you that you're alone and that you're, that no one's coming to save you, right? And then to have the contrast of that voice. And I think that's so, again, part of the reason why I have the podcast is for people to not brush that off.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not just some like random thought you're having when you're in the depths of fear, because when you're in the depths of fear, there's no, I mean, that stuff doesn't, fear doesn't say stuff like that. Right. So you really did have a moment. And would you say that was like the first time you really heard it?
It was the first time I'd heard it in a while.
Okay.
Because I'm sure I'd heard it.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'd heard it. It just, ego was protecting me all my life because I didn't feel good enough. So I just allowed everyone else to make a decision or tell me what to do. And so it's been in this journey, spiritual journey over the last 15, 20 years that I'm really getting back into my true self and trusting soul, trusting my intuition, listening to my heart, and knowing the difference between when the ego is talking and when the loving voice is talking. And to share an interesting thing, once I resigned from the bond business, I really was looking for something else to do, and I really did some soul searching. And I remember sitting in the office of a sort of a hypnotherapist. And I remember telling Patricia, what's my life purpose? I'm lost. I don't know. You tell me and I'll go do it. Right there I am asking for help. And she said, you'd probably make a good coach. And I said, what's coaching? I've never heard of it. And she said, well, my sister's a coach. And here are 3 websites. Go check it out.
Wow.
And one of them happened to be IPEC. And I checked it out. And within a week later, I signed up. And it was that trajectory of getting very spiritual and really needing some spiritual advisors to help me stay on that path to find alignment for my soul and for my gifts. And that's really my difficult transition, because I lost this career identity to now transitioning into who I really am, is something that I incorporate in my coaching, because it's so important for all of us to be in alignment with our souls and our inherent abilities and talents and values and all of that, which is what IPEC, the coaching school, afforded me to remember and reconnect with.
Yeah. I'd like to point out 2 things that I just heard you kind of touch on. One is that when you're successful, even though everyone was telling you what to do, and you became successful at what they told you to do. And I think that that's a big reason why people have a harder time getting off the path that they were taught, because they're like, well, it's working. I have what my parents told me I would have, which is success. Right. And so like on one end, I think it's even harder, right? Like even a brain tumor didn't, quite, that wasn't the moment. It was a different moment, right? That you said, okay, enough is enough, right? Because you were still on the path of developing your ego still, right, at 29, even though you're going through that, right? But then the other part is, okay, so even though your soul is an internal thing and it's speaking to you directly, and it doesn't want your vote and it doesn't want your money and it doesn't want, your approval. It's just literally speaking from there. We do need other people. Like, we do need to partner with people.
Mm-hmm.
We do need someone to sometimes say something that you go, oh, what? Like, it's not her telling you what to do anymore. She was just saying, I could see you. And that could be your soul dinging someone else's soul and saying, just say it out loud. Just say it out loud to her and see what she does. Right. And then you explored it, and then you listened to yourself and you kept going and you felt connected. And then you started remembering. And then to your point, we still need spiritual based people who believe in this process, that you do have an ego and you have a soul, and there's a definitive difference. And someone like you can help them in their daily lives of career, right? They don't have to quit their career and go live in a van down by the river, right? We're saying stay in your career. Clearly God put you here, or the creator put you in this space to do work, right? You're good at this, right? And so, I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak, right? And so that led you to being a coach. It led you to working with executives, working with people coming into careers, and now that you have your own sense of those two things, how does that inform your work today?
Yeah, I think how it really filters into my work is helping people who say they are just killing it at work and yet they're not satisfied. It's okay. Don't jump ship like I did. Let's just help you. So I've created this inside out approach where it's like, let's work together and let me help you just, get clear on who you are today. Like, raise yourself, because we're not the same people we were a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 15 years ago. Right. And in order to discern, do I stay, do I go, short-term, medium-term, long-term planned, it's more about, let's just take some time and do some inner work. Let's figure out, what are your strengths? What are your values? Where are your successes? What are your passions? What motivates you? Right. And, let's amass all of, I kind of call it your career capital. Let's really concretely raise it to the surface. And then what happens is it connects you to your soul, right? It really does. It connects you with your, with who you are and what you have to offer. And then from there, we do the outer work, which is, okay, now you're ready to set a life purpose or a career purpose for now, and set goals and move forward. Because this way you're making a decision and choice that's in alignment for you, your values, your strengths, your interest, versus sticking with the golden handcuffs. And granted, there's nothing wrong with that, but if you're not satisfied, let's figure out who you are now, what you want to do more of, what you want to do less of, and then let's kind of create a path for you. And you're not going to jump ship, because in a way you really are going to find out, yeah, it's time for me to move on, or no, you know what? It's really good here. It's maybe I just need to learn a few skills, like how to have difficult conversations, or I need to be a better leader. So I have worked with clients that were ready to quit and go open up a bar. And after working with them, seriously, he said, I really like being a project manager. I realized I need to leave the company. It's toxic. And do you know, as we know, when we're in alignment and we can clearly tell the universe what we want, when we're clear, the doors open and it kind of lands in our lap. So for instance, this gentleman who was bound and determined to quit his job and open up a bar in his mid-40s, after working, doing the inside out process, he realized, I just need to leave the company. And there's a competitor down the block. And do you know, Wynn, that he got a job 3 weeks later? And he is doing exceptional. And he's super happy. So It's getting in alignment. And so in a way, I kind of look at myself as a spiritual career coach. Like, let me help you get in alignment with all your gifts and talents. And then you can be in a more discerning place about what to do with your career.
And how do you, because when you ask someone like, let's talk about your values, right? Like a lot of people in therapy, when I'm sitting with them, they're like, well, this is the way I was raised, right? And so their values come from that. Like, how do you specifically, like, are you internally saying like, this doesn't feel like your truth? Or like, how do you help someone discern their values? Yeah.
Great question. And as I see it, our values are our inner GPS system, right? Guiding and directing us.
Okay.
Decisions, actions. And when we're in alignment with our values and we make a decision, we're on fire. We're in the flow. We're energized. Like, we never look back. This is great. Now, if we make a decision that maybe ego has kind of helped us with,
right,
soon after the decision we make, we're going to experience we're going to get 1, 2, or 3 internal warning signals.
yes.
And those are: 1, it's the emotions. Maybe we're going to be resentful. Why did we say yes? Or maybe we're going to feel scared, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just did that. 2, we might have physical sensations: can't sleep, irritable bowel, headaches all the time. Or 3, it's the mental. It's the mental looping. Oh my gosh, I don't know, why did I do this? Why did I do this? It's the mental looping. It's the second guessing. So for me, those are internal warning signs that tell me if I've made a decision compromising one or more values. And so, as I tell my clients, the beautiful thing is when you experience those, hit the pause button, pull out your values, and make a new choice to get back on track. So there's nothing wrong or right, but to me, that's how we can tell when we're in alignment or out of alignment.
Yeah. So there's a theme happening in this podcast or over time where people are saying the word feeling, which is very much something obviously we talk about in therapy. But to your point, like your soul doesn't doesn't think through problems and solve them. It feels. Right. And it feels in the moment. So like maybe a year ago, I shouldn't have started the podcast, but this year I did. And I have to trust my feelings. It's not like, oh no, I thought about that and I shouldn't do it ever. It's more of like, there's timing involved with the soul. There's, like you said, feeling involved with the soul, where it's like, let me like check in with myself, not just what the ego was taught, because the ego is only telling you, it's just spitting back out information that it was taught. Right. And so in your coaching, it sounds like you actually help people get in touch with their feelings. And like you said, you allow them to reevaluate all the time rather than make this is my decision and move on. Right. Would you say that's true? Okay, cool.
And I think to your point, and ego is all about the thought. And so growing up, we did not talk about feelings. We didn't share feelings. Right. We didn't express feelings.
No. So except for anger.
Yes. And then we were sent to our room. Like, yeah, you're go somewhere else. Right. So I think the thing that I've really learned is the importance of emotions and feelings, that they are really key to the soul. And honestly, I remember being in a therapy session and the therapist said to me, so Megan, what are you feeling? And I gave her a thought, and she said, well, that's a thought. What are you feeling? I said, you know what? I don't know feeling words. Do you have a list you can give me? She gave me a list that I still have to this day. It's like 9 columns. And honestly, it helped me really, because I had to really train the brain, to what are feelings? It's okay. It's not bad. Feelings, emotions, they're not good or bad. They are. And it's so important to really connect with them. And as you're saying, that's another piece to knowing how we connect to the soul.
Yep. I say we move from critical thinking to critical feeling. And
Ooh, that just got
right.
goosebumps.
And the
Yeah.
critical
Ooh.
feeling is a daily, like, what's my feedback? What's my feedback? What's feeling right? What is my heart saying? And I think, you maybe didn't say this before we started recording. You said something about I coach from the heart or something like that. What was that you said?
Yeah. So as a coach, I really am in service to others and really give and operate from the heart, because I look for those people that are looking for guidance from the heart to help them really reconnect with their heart, aka soul.
Yeah. And you had the physical experience yourself, right? Of moving from the head to the heart, basically. And now I can discern when I'm working with someone, they may be too heady. I'll get to the feelings of it, or, where did you learn that thought, and those kinds of things. So you're coaching them through that. How does that go when you're working with someone who's a team leader, right? So they not only are, leading themselves, right, which is what we learn in coaching, but like literally leading others. How do
Mhm.
you work with somebody in that when it's not just about their own path? How do you help those people?
Right. So, it all starts with, what is it that they're looking for? Is it their directs aren't listening or not following? And um, I really coach from, I coach the client and I
Mhm.
find out what's going on. And usually it's an ego thought getting in the way, or a limiting belief, right? Or a limiting story that they've been telling themselves about someone else or about themselves. And
Mhm.
it's always about having them redirect, and I go at it in a very um, curious and respectful, humble way to really help them see what's working or isn't working. And I do ask a lot of feeling questions. So when that happened, what did you feel? And
Yeah.
they do take aback. It takes them aback, and some give me a thought, and I'll say, well, that's a thought. Give me a feeling. I'm doing the same thing, and
Yes.
so it's helping them shift to be more compassionate, to
Mm.
be more courageous in themselves as a leader, and inspire their people or inspire themselves. And the other thing I wanted to just share with you is when I was working with a spiritual hypnotist, I remember talking about, she said, we have two voices inside of us.
Mhm.
She said, one is the ego, and that's
Mhm.
the ticker tape. It is always running. It's the negative
Ticker
trash.
tape. Yeah.
It's the negative trash
Yep.
talk. She said, and then we have the loving heart voice.
Mhm.
That only tells us what we need to know at that moment. It's always loving.
That's
And
right.
I said, Patricia, how do I know whose voice I'm hearing? And she said, well, in order to hear the heart or the soul voice, you've got to get really, really quiet. And you
Mhm.
have to turn the ticker tape off, the monkey mind, and sit quietly.
Mhm.
And I have to tell you, that has been probably the biggest challenge I've had, is to really quiet the monkey mind and tune into that soul, that heart. I
Yeah.
think I was afraid that when I did, that loving voice might tell me I'm in the wrong job, I'm the bad mother, I'm in the wrong this or that. And actually, she's right. It only tells you what you need to know, and it's always loving.
Yeah.
So
That
I
is so
share that with people because that was such an aha for me.
Yeah, and I think, God, I hear this over and over again in therapy. When I ask people if they meditate, they're like, "Well, I tried it; it wasn't for me." And I'm like, "Well, how long did you try it?" Because it's not about trying it; it's a lifestyle, right? And I think at first the voice gets louder actually when you sit quietly, which I think is why people think it doesn't work. But even if you can never literally turn off the monkey mind, there is a part of you during meditation that sits back and goes, well, wait a second, am I the observer of the thought
Mhm.
or am I the thought itself? And they go, no, I'm the observer. So I can even watch the ticker tape go by and still know there's a higher self or a soul that talks to you. And then it does feel like it comes more from the heart than the head. And to your point, it will be very specific about that very moment, and it will be loving. And I think that is another way to discern, especially if you're in therapy and you have racing thoughts and you have anxious, mind, right? That to know that you can still start to meditate there. You can still see the two things. It's more just getting the fact that there are two things happening, right? Not just one ego that's just pushing you down and doing this. And, so I really appreciate you saying that. And we should do a whole nother podcast on meditation.
Sure.
But the last thing I wanted to ask you, because I wanted to stay a bit on the leadership, you said something that I heard another coach say to me the other day. They said a lot of times leaders have limiting beliefs about their own people. And I love that would be an approach that you might take, because people are freaking amazing and they have so many gifts and they have souls that they're in touch with. And a leader who's heart-centered can bring that stuff out in someone rather than believe like, well, they're never going to get it, or, well, they shouldn't know this information because they're below me. Like, I love that you do that. It sounds like you actively question them about those beliefs.
I do. And I think just in thinking about one client who is struggling with one of his directs, right? I just said, it's more like, well, what are you doing to maybe either enable this behavior that you don't like in them, or what are you doing to help? What are you doing?
Yeah.
That's helping them change. And I think, he realized he was avoiding the difficult conversations, right, with the direct. And then I said, well, let's talk about an approach that you can really take into a meeting and have a difficult conversation and know that it will go well, because that's something, we all have to have difficult conversations. And yet I stress being a curious leader, have curiosity, have openness, and really listen, right? And ask questions to find out, gee, what caused them to make that choice? What are they going to do differently, right? So it's about being curious and helping that direct figure it out versus being the boss that's directing them to do something, right? Because there's a difference between a boss who's curious and sort of helping their direct problem solve or learn versus just direct and tell. And it's for tell versus ask, right? It's really important to distinguish that, because when you change the way you show up, the way you lead, you change those around you.
Yeah. And it just feels better. It just feels better. I mean, there's no doubt about it. So
it's win-win. Yeah.
Well, and my name is Win. So
yes. And this is a win-win podcast today.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Megan, for being here. How can people find you if they want to work with you?
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. And boy, it flew by. I'm sad it's over. We can keep talking.
We'll do another one.
Yes. I am owner of Walls Career Coaching. You can reach out to
me. WALLS.
That's right. Wall with an S. You can check out my website, wallscareercoach.com, or email me at Megan, MEGAN, at wallscareercoach.com.
Awesome. And I remember a time, for some reason, where you were doing a lot with people literally just entering the workforce, young people. Is that something you still do?
So a couple things. Thanks for asking. 2 things to share. I offer a 6-week career planning program where I sit down with a client or a group, and we're going to really go through and uncover your career, your concrete career inventory, which is, strength assessment, a values assessment, skills assessment, really bring all that up, craft your brand, and then, or have you just create a career plan for you, and then we create an action steps
Yeah.
and a plan customized to you. So that's one thing. And then every month I host a 1 hour webinar called Introduction to Personal Brand. And this is really, personal brand is really important for us if we own a business, if we're in a company, or if we're changing jobs. And so what I talk about is, what is personal branding? Why is it important for your career or job search? We talk about the elements of a brand statement, how to leverage it, and then we look at the components and some examples. So that's the third Tuesday of every month from 12 to 1 Central. And so this coming Tuesday, a week from today, this time, I'm offering it, and I offer it every month. Yeah,
That's
so
awesome.
I'd love to have anybody interested.
I feel like young people, my kids are almost 18 and 19. And I feel like my daughter says things like, well, I'm going to have 4 jobs at once. Like I feel like a lot of young people are piecing together their lives rather than following a traditional career path that you and I were taught. And I just want to make sure people knew that that was something you did, because I think it's very rare. I think it's a very cool thing you do. So,
well, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here, and I appreciate it, and I hope to see you on another one.
Thank you. It's been an honor and just a blast. Thanks so much, Wen.
All right. Have a good rest of your day.
You too. Bye-bye.